at noontime. Four students and 9 other students, a total of 13. 4 students were killed, 9 were wounded, 1 permanently paralyzed in a chair still today. Since then, there's been a few that have died from old age, natural causes, and other things. I'm just going to say that. And probably depression, maybe, who knows. But it was horrific because for that weekend, the National Guard was brought in, and the entire city was on a lockdown. We were under martial law for a good 6 weeks after the kids were killed. Dusk to dawn curfews, and it made it a little harder for us. But that day, 4 students. One was in ROTC going to ROTC military school. None of them. Only one was protesting. That was Jeffrey Miller. He was the only one that was down on the Commons. He had the long hair. The other 3, they were meandering through the Commons. And the Commons is where everybody in those days walked through because it was the closest way to get from class to class. A big yards, big fields. And so they're just meandering about. And the National Guard had taken up posts there and everything. And at the very top of the hill by the most famous cement mushroom, they're called the pagoda. Looks like a cement mushroom, giant one too. That's where they turned around, opened fire. Just recently, with tapes, enhancement, and everything, they have found out now. And Alan Canfora, who's one of the biggest, was one of the 4 that were, one of the 9 that were wounded. He lives in Barberton. He's been pushing Barberton, Ohio. He's been pushing for this. They have finally got it where they have found on the tape, because a student had recorded it with a long distance mic back in the day, the order to fire. A guy turned around, green. Or whatever he said, open or fire. He gave the command to fire. And for 13 seconds, some 70 rounds went off.
Wow.
And they were all M1s. The closest person was probably about 200 feet away. The farthest person was probably about... No, the closest person was probably about 80 feet away. The farthest person was about 250 feet away. And the ones that died. And then the other 9, like I said, Dean Kaler lives in Canton, Mansfield area, Canton, Massillon area. He's in a wheelchair for life because he got caught back in the back. And Tommy Grace got shot in the foot. Alan got shot in his ankle, his wrist. But, they were... to get shot is one thing. Where it is, it doesn't really matter. An M1 is an M1. It's a big shit bullet. So it was that was May 4th. They chased everybody off campus by the end of that week. By Friday, the campus had shut down. The city was in a lockdown mode. You couldn't get in, you couldn't get out without proper ID. If you worked outside the city, you couldn't get anywhere. And finally, they released, the curfew, everything. And when it started to get where you could start doing it later in the summer, when they finally got rid of that curfew, and the National Guard had finally left, Crosby, not Stills, but Crosby, Nash, and Young came into town. And I met them that night that they came in. They were at Angelo's Pizza. We were out on there. And it was probably early July, just when they came out with the song Ohio, which is a wonderful song if you haven't heard it. And the other song you want to hear is about it is the Cost of Freedom. They wrote that, I think, also in the fact that one of my good friends, Ken Hammond, buried the Constitution on the Commons that day on May 1st. On that Friday, he buried the Constitution because Nixon went against the law by invading a sovereign, neutral country. Just because North Vietnam was using it to hold, he still invaded them. Right or wrong, just how you look at war.